My dearest grandson, how delighted and happy we are. Granny and Grandpa have 5 daughters and 2 granddaughters. You, baby Phuong, have made our long cherished dream of a boy come true.
Ra đi hôm nay khi mùa hè nhạc ve tiếng đưa ta nhớ lại một mùa thu xưa, lòng sao thương nhớ bao người phong kia, ôi sao bâng khuâng nhớ bao nhiêu kỷ niệm, nhớ mùa thu xưa, nhớ ngày nào mẹ ta tiếng đưa trao con mình áo móng quần thưa, những ngày dạo cho sứ mang nặng nề, ra đi không hẹn ngày về, nhưng mẹ vẫn đến ngày đi.
Our country has been liberated for 18 years, but images of the wars have not faded in my mind.
Đường ta chân đi vội bước, lòng xuân thêm bao thắm tươi, nhạc ngất bước men rừng vẫn đưa hồn say xưa, đường bát ngát tôi rừng mến yêu.
How can I forget the memories of that autumn long past, which overwhelms me still with emotion? Whilst you are fast asleep, I feel happy with the thought that my happiness is here in my old age.
My beloved son, after the war, houses and land were devastated. Life was still difficult, and we remained very poor. Without the family, Granny, Grandpa, and your aunties, Dad and I could hardly survive. We have to lean on one another and make sacrifices for each other.
Mốt xuống chứ mà đều mà ngày mai đi thêm á.
Được vậy đâu?
Không đi nhà, đường đường từ nhà thôi hả?
Bữa đó quen được không?
Mai nè, đến mai tranh thủ trước bữa.
Cái này gì đó?
Your granny and I were born and grew up in a time when the country had continuous wars. When I was young, the French had been ruling Vietnam for over 80 years already. People suffered a lot of harassment, brutal torture, and many innocent people were jailed, exiled, and died unjustly. Sometimes people were even executed by the guillotine. In 1945, I joined the Viet Minh organization against the French until they were defeated in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Our country was divided into two parts to await a general election. But the Americans came in to support the Diem government, so the Vietnamese were compelled to continue fighting, this time against the Americans for another 20 years. The American war was so different from the French period because America is a rich country and their military forces were much better armed and equipped than the French. Because of this, we suffered a lot more.
My dearest son, the war finished 18 years ago, but it still affects human beings and the environment. Agent Orange, a chemical poison, destroyed much of our land. The Americans used it to defoliate trees so that the guerrillas had no cover.
Đừng để bung ra. Gạt đi. Rồi gạt.
My dearest love, I'm so happy you were born healthy and normal. So many unfortunate children have been born deformed because their parents were affected by Agent Orange.
Giật đi. Giật.
Thiệt là ba không có ngờ bây giờ cái miếng vườn này nó được xinh tươi, nó đẹp như thế này, là cũng cái công sức bỏ ra cũng từ lâu. Hồi trước á, cái chiến tranh chỗ này là cái khu vực mà mấy ông cán bộ ở, thì đây là những cái đường mà có hầm trong rồi có lựu đạn bố trí, nếu như người lạ mà đi không có ai hướng dẫn là rớt xuống hầm trong luôn. Mấy cái mương bây giờ mình dọn trống mình coi nó đẹp như vậy đó, chứ còn hồi đó đó thì rau mát rồi lục bình cỏ nó bò phích như này, để khi nào mà bất tử á, có lính đi mà nó bất ngờ mà không có xuống hầm bí mật kịp thì mình chém về ló cái lỗ mũi lên.
You are blessed to have been born and grow up in a peaceful time. Our village has had electricity for a few years. Bridges have been repaired. And now Daddy can ride on his motor scooter along the tow path every day to work. Not like when I was growing up. The country was at war, and I was frequently separated from my family during my childhood. Our house was in the middle of the village and was often caught in the crossfire between the South Vietnamese army and the Viet Cong. Sometimes we would have to live in the middle of a meal when the two sides fought. Because it was our ancestors' land, Granny and Grandpa did not want other people to take it over, so they had to stay and guard it. Auntie Hai escaped death many times. One day, whilst working in the garden, she heard shelling and ran for cover in the house. Just as she reached the underground shelter, a shell exploded on the very spot where she had just been standing. You never knew from one moment to the next if you would live or die in those days.
Cái nó đi hái mận, mấy Tết cái hai đứa đi hái mận ở ngoài vườn á. Không biết làm sao cái pháo binh á bắn ăn hũ bắn xuống. Mà chỗ đó lúc này thì giải phóng đâu có đi đánh giặc, đâu có đánh quốc gia gì đâu, yên thì dân đi ra vườn mận. Ai về đâu bắn lạc, cái chết hai đứa nó chết mà lụm vô hốt cái thúng lụm vô. Thấy sợ quá, ngủ không được, sợ lắm. Rồi ở dưới đường cũng vậy nữa, ban đêm cái dân mà mấy thanh niên á ở xóm trên này có hai đứa đi chơi về cái giải phóng người ta đón người ta bắt mà đánh quốc gia. Cái ban đêm cái nói mấy thằng nó đi về cái nó nói nó đi thục pizza, nó nói trái mày ăn mấy trái. Cái mấy ông giải phóng này tưởng mà lính đi biệt kích, cái ông bắn cái trời ơi chết. Sáng ra dưới đường chết thôi, thấy sợ quá trời luôn. Nói, trời ơi chắc ở đây chắc không biết ngày nào chết. Nghe chị sợ lắm.
Many of our villages suffered terrible losses. Uncle Hai lost 11 of his close family. One day, whilst traveling in a boat to visit his father, his family was suddenly shelled by artillery. The boat sank, killing all of them, the 27-year-old mother, the aunt, and 9 brothers and sisters. Only his mother's body was found later. The remaining 10 members of his family sank without trace to the bottom of the river or drifted away.
biết sinh nó tự đuổi nó sao đấy.
In the 1970s, when the war was boiling in the Mekong Delta, our family had to evacuate all the time. If the enemy attacked this place, we would move to another place. Every time the two sides were fighting, Granny, Grandpa, and your mummy and aunties took a small canoe and we rowed with the current to a place where the shelling could not be heard. We stayed there for a few days until the fighting was over. We lived like that for around 4 years.
Since you were born, I have felt so much younger. Being with you brings me lots of happiness. And your dad, even though he has had more work to do, doesn't feel tired. Our total salary per month is $20. So, in order to be able to feed you properly, Dad does extra work on our land, on top of his work at the agricultural center.
My dearest grandson, once during the war, I worked as a driver in a tea plantation in a distant place. I missed the family so much and worried about them a lot. One day I climbed the high hill where I was working and looked in the direction of the Mekong Delta with a sad, torn heart. I recorded that memory on paper. Standing on a high hill one evening, I watched the stream flowing by. My heart is filled with love and sorrow. Poverty forced me to leave my homeland, my children, and my delicate wife. This saddens and worries me. Would you, the Creator, please have compassion for this unlucky man? For even though things are changing and the stars are moving, I remain honest and sincere through this hard life. After the American War was over, another war started in 1978 when we fought against Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge. They attacked villages along our border and massacred people. Thousands of Vietnamese lost their lives in the Cambodian War. Pol Pot was backed by China, who in turn invaded northern Vietnam in 1979.
Nói chung các nước đều có những cái mình cũng muốn ban giao các nước, nghĩa là có cái giàu cái lòng tình cảm để mà ban giao trong khi để
My dearest grandson, it seems that no one can leave us alone. I heard on the radio that China has signed a contract with an American oil company to explore for oil in our territorial water. China has also been impounding cargo ships trading between Hong Kong and Vietnam. In the light of what happened in the past, how can we trust our neighbors in the future? I hope these problems will be resolved and you will continue to grow up in a peaceful time. I was reading in the newspaper about the American trade embargo which was imposed on us in 1975. I hope it will be lifted soon because it not only hinders our trade but prevents us from receiving international aid. Even though this trade embargo seems to prove a superpower's long-lasting resentment against a small country like Vietnam, we would like to normalize relations with the Americans and want to forget the war of 20 years, from which both countries have so many scars and have suffered so many losses.
It's not long now before Thoi Noi to celebrate your first birthday, one of the most important days you will ever have in your childhood. Your uncle and auntie Ba will travel on their scooter from Mỹ Tho, 40 miles away, to come here and join you. When Mommy and Auntie Ba were little schoolgirls, we were away from the family during the war. We missed home so much that one day we took the risk of going home alone along this tow path. The way home was treacherous. No bridges, just temporary pieces of wood, which we had to crawl across. We found out later that the towpath was booby-trapped with landmines. How lucky we were not to have been injured as we ran along it innocently.
My dearest grandson, how delighted and happy we are. The third star being born is the only boy of the family. Granny and Grandpa have 5 daughters and 2 granddaughters. You, baby Phuong, have made our long cherished dream of a boy come true.
Thoi Noi is the time when you are no longer in the cradle. You are now able to take a few toddling steps and babble some words like mommy, daddy, etc. It is also celebrated for you to choose a symbol of your future career. Your paternal grandma, together with your great aunt, aunties, uncles, and cousins from Saigon and the Mekong Delta, will come here to be with you at your Thoi Noi party.
kiến nè, cây viết nè, cây kéo nè, cây xôi nè. Đó.
Looking back in the past, I have mixed feelings of sorrow and happiness. Sadness because for hundreds of years we have had to suffer natural calamities and the destruction of war continuously. Happy because I feel proud of our predecessors who have suffered so much pain and shed so much blood in order to gain peace for us today. But I'm very concerned about the country's economic situation. I just read the comments of the new Prime Minister. He said that it was time for us to wage war against corruption, like the Italian government against the mafia. It seems easier to fight against foreign invaders than build one's country in a peaceful time.
Đường có dành nhiều lắm. Còn cái áo ít nữa. Sắp cái khác nữa.
Vô nó cái việc nó lặt mấy cái hộp nó không có rời cái trái điệp.
Nó làm thì là hai em biết sao nó có rời ra nhưng mà đổ em biết á nó rời ra từ phần hết trơn mình dọn lên đó rồi mình nhìn để hết xong rồi bắp bánh không đâu mà đều đổ em biết á nó rời ra từ phần hết trơn mình để hết không phải người ta đặt có nhiều tiền em biết nó đặt.
What concerns me is whether you will be a useful person in society when you grow up. Dad wants you to be a builder because he says boys should be the country's foundation and support. As for me, I like you to be a doctor because doctors can rub away the pain for everyone. These are only our wishes, but let's see what you will choose at your Thoi Noi party. If you choose scissors, you will be a tailor. If a pen, you will be a scholar. If a handful of sticky rice pudding, you will be a farmer. You chose the sticky rice pudding, so it looks as though you will follow in your parents' footsteps and work on the land. Anyway, whatever profession you choose in the future, whether you will be with me or far from home, you should always remember your roots because our values spring from there.
Có nhưng mà rốt cuộc
My dearest son, Nghĩa Phuong, I read in the newspapers recently that there are many foreign companies coming to our country to invest, and that our foreign relations are strengthening. On one hand, I think it's very good, because we are opening ourselves to the world. But on the other hand, we could easily lose our identity. We should protect the values for which our ancestors shed a lot of blood and suffered much hardship. I entrust you to fulfill this dream.